Roosevelt.
Roosevelt.
Yeah.
So that was the acquisition of a publicly traded company. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so we ended up getting money from Korea for that, where we put in a bid
Mm-hmm.
um, that was ultimately lost to because of pressure from one of the creditors.
Mm-hmm.
And so we, yeah, that was basically what happened in that scenario. So we had to create a financial model and then create a model of essentially in that transaction, the market wasn't valuing the company properly because the company
Mm-hmm.
actually owned some of its own real estate. It was a hotel company. So the real estate was worth more than the company was trading at. So there was an ability to buy the company and then sell off the real estate and keep the
Mm-hmm.
management company, the hotel
Mm-hmm.
management company, um, and basically pay off all of the debt. Um, so basically go asset light because they had some strong brands.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was kind of the strategy. And then also a go forward strategy post acquisition of, you know, putting together the proper management team and figuring out exactly how to move forward um, in terms of growth and what that would
Mm-hmm.
look like from a valuation perspective.
All right. And you mentioned that you also helped create the long-term growth strategy and helped select a new management team. So how big was the team that you kind of helped select, and what growth gaps did you help the company address in the final recommendation?
Um, so the management team was about 4 people. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the growth gaps was really going asset light and focusing
Mm-hmm.
on management contracts and branded deals as opposed to
Mm-hmm.
the acquisition of actual real estate. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so that was really what the focus was on.
Mm-hmm. And again, how well received was the strategy here? Because you mentioned that you presented the strategy and the plan to the special committee, right? And the investment bank targeting, representing your client. So, how well received was the strategy, overall strategy?
It was well received. The bid was also ultimately, even though the bid for the company was at a higher price, it was at a premium
Mm-hmm.
to the other offer. The other
Mm-hmm.
companies, the other bidder actually won the deal because of pressure from a creditor.
What about the Breakers Hotel project? You mentioned again that you supported the CEO with daily operational functions. Any particular operational bottlenecks that you helped identify and contributed to any process improvements for that?
Yes, that was a project I did while I was again interning, like it was part of my
Yeah.
graduate project
Mhm.
in grad school. But yeah, so we
Mhm.
figured out um, ways to increase um, revenue per square foot um, for areas that weren't optimized or weren't being optimized or used to the best level um, or best use. Um, so they eventually added ceviche bar and cocktail lounge to some parts of the pool areas that weren't being utilized.
Mhm. All right. And were your recommendations implemented?
Yes.
Uh-huh. And how much revenue per square foot were you able to kind of help increase as a result of these recommendations?
Uh, I don't know the exact number, but it would be like well over 75%.
Mm-hmm. All right. What about Caesars Entertainment? You mentioned that you built a model to value the different operating companies owned by this particular company, and you specifically valued each casino and digital gaming aspect. Why was this done? As in, why did the client need to do this in the first place? what was this or the specifics of the model that you developed?
Well, we were representing the second lien bondholders. They were going through a bankruptcy. So we needed to figure out what the value of what each of one of the assets was, or were, in case there was a sale of a specific asset, or if they were to be acquired. Based on gaming law, specific companies can only have a certain amount of licenses within the state. So, like Louisiana, let's say it's 8 licenses. If MGM were to put an offer in to buy Caesars and they already have 6 licenses, but Caesars had 3 locations within that area, it would put them over the gaming threshold. So then they would have to then quickly sell to the hotels, which might not be as profitable, right? Or they would have to partner with someone else in terms of that acquisition.
All right. And again, what were the specifics of the model that you built in terms of the findings that you kind of gave to the
Well,
company?
we had to do valuations, and then there was also digital assets that they owned as well. So like it wasn't just like you could value them as they were just a straight casino company. They also owned their digital assets as well, which were growing quickly.
All right. What about the confidential regional gaming operator project? You mentioned that again, you advised the company on potential right information transaction, and there was pressure from an activist investor. So, give me a bit more details about this, as in the scenario that you were supposed to work in, the strategy that you helped again develop, build.
Yeah, so there was an activist investor that came in and said that was insisting that there be some recommendations, or that the specific company undertake specific strategic alternatives, and said that the share price and it would be profitable for the company to do so for a list of reasons, and we had to work on activist defense to show that the math and the way that they were evaluating it wasn't accurate.
All right. And again, what were your key strategies to achieve these findings? As in, what were the model specifics that you kind of like built for this company?
We just used pure comps, had the actual financial information from the company, were able to project growth rates, and show what the market should be valuing things at, how their math based on joint venture income wasn't properly represented, and that the value that they were expecting to be created wasn't necessarily accurate, and that their assumptions weren't on par with what was true in the market at that time.
Okay. So, how kind of like again well received were your findings in the sense, how did they help improve the client, improve the overall scenario?
Our findings?
Yeah.
Our findings, yes, helped improve to help inform the activist investor that their suggestions or what they were trying to force them to do was not in the best interest of the company.
All right. What about the new senior investment group? Here you were supposed to give a fairness opinion for, on a $640 million portfolio acquisition, right? So you mentioned that you researched and analyzed similar RIDA management contracts, et cetera, et cetera. What again were your results, were your insights for this project?
So we had to go through, because it was like a related party transaction, quote unquote, because they were both entities that were controlled by the same private equity group, and we had to go through and make sure that it was a fair transaction based on, given the fact that they were the same company essentially. and that the assets are being sold for a fair price. And so we had to go through the profitability and take calls with senior management for New Senior to make sure that, and take models of each one of the specific assets and then create a portfolio model to come up with a number that was accurate based on trading comps for what we thought would be a fair range of values for to trade assets, and then give an opinion as to whether or not it was a accurate price to sell.
And I mean, can you explain a bit on your opinion in terms of like what was the final recommendation that you gave? What were your findings at the end of the day?
At the end of the day, that it was a fair transaction, and that it was within the bounds and ranges of what would be reasonable for something like that to happen.
And what would be that particular range?
I don't have the numbers in front of me. I mean, it was a 100-page presentation.
All right, it's fine. Okay. So you gave recommendations for this. So what about the Borgata Hotel and Resort project? You mentioned again that you were a financial advisor to this publicly traded gaming company, right? And you prepared an extensive valuation packet to deliver to the company's management and board of directors. What were the components of this valuation packet? What areas did you kind of analyze and like give your recommendation on?
This was like kind of a funky one because it was right when we shut down the Green Hill office, but we actually were on retainer by both companies at the same time. So it was coming up with a value of what the asset was worth based on their projected revenues, the potential for it to be spun off into a REIT, meaning the asset being spun off into a REIT and going asset light, and everything related in between.
All right. And what about the confidential global gaming operator? You advised the senior management on strategic initiatives. What kind of strategic initiatives, and why was this needed?
We were on retainer with MGM Resorts. That's the confidential company, and they basically, the way our relationship worked with them, and it was Boyd Gaming as well, is they paid us, and whatever other banks would come to pitch them on concepts or ideas, whether it would be debt raises, equity raises, if they should take a parking lot and turn it into a mobile home park, a mall, if they should start charging for parking or not, they would come to us and we would evaluate what other people were presenting, but then we would also present them opportunities on, like if they should buy another company, if they should turn on, like, evaluate spinning off their assets into a REIT, if they should not, anything related to some development or financial transactions and what the implications might be to their stock price.
All right. And again, what was the impact of these recommendations or these scenarios that you kind of developed for them? Did they help the company?
Yeah. I mean, so some of these, like, other transactions, right, were like the sale of the Borgata Hotel or activist defense stuff that we mentioned previously. Like, those were like the results of this, like, us being on retainer with them.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, that does. All right. What about the Magic Jack transaction? Again, you presented the strategy and plan to the special committee and the investment bank representing the target company. What constituted of what were the different constituents of this strategy that you presented to them? What areas did you kind of covered?
So it was overall strategy of like growth, meaning the acquisition of this company, and how packaging it together with this telecom, not telecom, media startup, be able to offer a telecom and uh, media or video package would result in higher profitability and sales for the company. Because it was
Mm-hmm.
essentially a melting ice cube where they had a ton of cash, but their sales were declining. And it was
Mm-hmm.
a way for them to be taken private and bundled together with, like when you get like, like an internet package, a TV package, and like a cable package, um, you get discounts on it. And this
Mm-hmm.
startup specialized in getting um, specific international content. So they would get like the top three stations from Portugal or from Spain or from like Egypt or Israel or wherever. The folks would pay like $10 a month, and they, instead of going through like Time Warner and having to get, pay like $50 and getting all these additional packages just to get the news stations that they wanted, they were able to pay like $10 or $19 just to get, you know, via the internet, just the stations they actually wanted. And the idea
Mm-hmm.
was to partner them with this telecom company so that it would be a package deal and something they could offer together. So that was the
Mm-hmm.
strategy, um, by partnering the two together and then doing all the financial analysis and modeling behind it and what that would look like.
Mm-hmm. All right. And what about Project Fashion Island? So again, you created the financial marketing materials, you led the capital market efforts, you secured $10 million in debt, and then you identified several equity commitments to close the deal, right? What were the components of the long-term growth strategy that you helped create for this particular company or client, and any particular challenges that you addressed for this overall project?
Yeah, so this was a conversion of a parking, um, car wash into a high-end luxury um, condominium complex. So we did address like some environmental concerns regarding the the property itself, like the actual ground,
Mm-hmm.
and then secured a construction loan and acquisition financing for the actual real estate, um, as well as help refine the concept for the condominium development.
Mm-hmm. All right. And any particular challenges that you faced?
Um, Not specific ones. No, it was
Mm-hmm.
pretty. That was pretty easy and smooth.
Mm-hmm. All right. And what about Project VRC? You assisted the corporate and fund structure. You assisted the team, the client, with corporate and fund structure development and governance. So again, how did you kind of like? What did your assistance entail of, and how did you help them develop a stable fund structure and governance?
So developed the corporate model because they were
Mm-hmm.
like the internal like business model for the company. Um, Help raise capital for it was virtual reality deal, to develop a branded series, initially a branded series in conjunction with a major movie studio company. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so it's going out and raising content for virtual reality programming.
Mm-hmm. All right. And the results that you were able to help the client with?
That the final results were that they had an operating functional operating corporate model that they um, had they actually were able to develop the series, um, and that the capital was there for them to use to develop the series.
Mm-hmm. All right. And what about the Project Red Rover? Yeah. Um, oh, just one thing about Project BRC. You helped the company acquire a well-known board member from the video game industry. How did that impact the overall client business?
Helped when I helped place a board member.
Yeah. So how did that impact on the overall business outcome, client business outcome?
Well, it added credibility because the board member I helped place was a former general counsel and one of the guys who helped start and fund a company called Activision Blizzard, which is one of the largest video game manufacturers or producers in the world. So it helped add a level of credibility since they were essentially a startup.
All right. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's kind of what happened.
Okay. And what about Project Red Rover? Again, what were the key challenges that you addressed, and how, I mean, you helped identify a local management team in running the new facilities. So what were your results, recommendations, analysis?
What was Project Red Rover? Which company was that under? TCS?
Yeah, TCS.
Yeah, so that was when we were looking to relocate Jaguar and Land Rover manufacturing, right? Is that what it says?
Yeah,
Yeah, so we were just doing like an evaluation of relocating.
of the cost side, you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it was really looking for assets in the market that were no longer in use and figuring out how much it costs to retool them to move manufacturing production to the States.
All right. Okay. And again, what were your results or your key recommendations? Any cost savings that you helped contribute to?
I ended up. That's when I ended up switching to Greenhill, like after that
Mm-hmm.
process, like in the middle of that process.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And what about the Las Vegas Mob Experience project? You were had to develop to assist with their project development, ultimate restructuring, right? So, as in, what kind of operational improvements did you help recommend? Did you help them kind of implement to achieve this goal?
Implementation of new technology to help reduce labor. So prior to opening, using automated new technology systems, the
Mm-hmm.
requirement for amount of staff on site wasn't as high.
Mm-hmm.
We uh,
You also kind of like assisted in making introductions to property owners, right? And you assisted with lease negotiations, etc., etc. Any particular challenges that you faced in that particular aspect?
no, it was pretty smooth, pretty seamless.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. And what about the Rock Dome project? You identified content development or operational partners for the first project. You raised this much in equity, etc., etc. What were your key recommendations here?
Um, key recommendations were about how to properly structure development of the content, where the assets of the entity initially would lie, and then where they'd lie once there were multiple entities in development.
Mm-hmm.
And help with the overall growth strategy and plan of where, after the first location, where the next locations would be.
Mm-hmm. All right. And what about the Lounge Reserve project? Again, you were a strategic advisor who developed and helped in the product launch. Um,
I, I was
what kind
also
of
I also was an equity owner in that as well.
okay? So, as in how much business value did that help add?
Um, we were up to about $8 million in bookings.
Hmm.
within the first 4 months.
Mm-hmm. Hello. Hello.